What's up YouTube, and welcome back to Homebrew Subaru. In this episode I'm going to install all of the suspension parts onto the Forester. So what's up everyone? This video is going to be a little bit longer because there's a lot of work to do and I have parts just scattered everywhere. So I'm going to start on the front and there's a few things I still have to do. I have to prep some parts and spray some rubberized undercoating and the clear coat and that kind of thing. Some hardware I have to go through, some hardware I have to clean up, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start getting the parts back onto the Forester. So first thing, I got a few more parts that I've cleaned up. The front strut tower brace, I've got that all wire brushed and just fresh clear coat on it right now, just setting. And then the brackets, I've got them cleaned and painted, but I think I'm going to hit them with that rubberized coating. A couple things with the front control arms before I can actually, clean them up and hit them with some clear coat is I needed some new hardware for these front links, and to get M12 bolts in grade 8 in town was not going to happen, so I've had to go up to 1/2 inch, and basically I have drilled that open with a 1/2 inch bit. It wasn't that fun, and there wasn't very much to take off, but the drill bit just kept on wanting to bind, and I really had to figure out the technique for getting through the whole barrel. But that is done, and now I'm ready to get off these rearward bushings and put on the Forester style bushings that I need. So I've got the control arms hit with a bunch of clear coat, and it's just it's pretty much dry already. It's set so quickly. I've got the Forester bushings changed onto the arms. I've left them loose because of the lift, that the arms are probably going to sit in a slightly different position when it's sitting back down on the ground, so I'll wait till it's back together and then tighten them. And I did go ahead and hit these with that rubberized coating. And then the strut towers, I've cleaned up all the rust that was just building up around the holes and around the edge here. And let the primer set, and I'm about to hit those with a shot of paint on both sides. I have the CV axles all primed and painted. I'm just waiting for them to dry, give them a second coat of black. And then over here I've taken the lift kit and hit it with a really heavy coat of clear. Got a second coat of black on the CV axles, and then over here I've got a coat of rocker guard on the lower section of the strut and clear coat on the upper section. I kind of debated putting rocker guard on them, but realistically it's the best way to protect them, and they're just cheap struts. Like, it doesn't really matter. Just a little tip when assembling the inner tie rods: they need that lock washer transferred from the old tie rods to the new ones. So try and straighten it out a little bit, and then when the rack is in the vehicle, it's pretty much impossible to peen the top side of it. So just peen the bottom side, and they also provide red Loctite. So I have this area relatively cleaned up from all the grease that sprayed out from the leaking boot, and I am just draining the fluid. The plug itself has very little debris on the end of it, and it's super fine. So this corner I've got the control arm and CV axle in. I've got that new 1/2 inch bolt going through there, anti-seize on the shoulder of it and the threads, and I cleaned up the bolts for the other side and put anti-seize on those. It's just so nice having everything cleaned up and all new parts to work with. It's really clean going together. Next is the struts and knuckles. I've already gone ahead and put the spacers onto the struts. I've used the stainless hardware, and I've got lots more of it to use for the top end to tighten the spacer to the body. I've got camber bolts and just new regular grade 8 bolts to put into the knuckle end of the strut. And then over here, the knuckle that had the old ball joint into it, I'm just about to replace that. So this is for the left front corner, which I'm working on currently, and then I'll just get this together quickly and bang it all together. I'll have one corner almost finished. So I started going together with this side and I ran into a small issue here. The axle is actually touching the engine cradle at full droop. I don't remember anyone else having this issue, and it could be because of the axle, and you know, maybe the control arm is pulling it that direction a little bit more. I know these control arms are supposed to give a little caster, but I can't have it touching like that at any point. So I'm probably gonna have to take part of this back apart and at least trim that little corner off so that I've got enough clearance for the axle at full droop. I don't want it cutting through there. So that was actually really easy, just snipping that little corner out of there for the extra clearance. I put the rubberized undercoating on the cradle and a little squirt of paint on the axle just to get that little spot that rubbed off. There is a couple reasons why this is probably happening. No sway bars, for one, are allowing for a little bit more droop. But I think the main obstruction is likely those frame rails, not the U-brace in a Forester, but just those braces that go across underneath the control arms. I don't think you can get this amount of droop with those things even on there. So I have a feeling they were going to come off any which way. But I'm ready to start tightening things up, get the brakes on, and I'll head to the other side. And not too much longer, I have the front completely together, brakes and everything. I tried to clean up the brakes as best I could. These are the brakes I replaced like 2 years ago. The pad linings are still probably, you know, 6-7 millimeter at least, so they're gonna last me quite a while. Now, something I did end up doing in here was bending this bracket inward as far as I could to straighten up this top braided line that I have coming out. It was pointed, you know, quite a bit further towards the perch of the spring. Of course, turning, it was rubbing right on the line. Now, of course, the suspension is going to compress, and the perch is going to probably end up, you know, quite a bit higher away from all of this. But it's something I'm going to have to keep an eye on. I got a feeling that it is going to rub over time as the, you know, suspension walks around a little bit. But other than, like, you know, cutting the bracket and re-welding it over here or something like that, I'm not quite sure exactly what I'll end up doing. So that's a future thing, nothing that I'm going to be really concerned about for the beginnings anyway. And here's a look from the top. You can see that spacer with the laser cut logo coming through there, and everything's been sprayed and treated. I've got stainless hardware holding that together, and this side's all finished as well with anti-seize on all the bolts that need to be anti-seized, and I like to put a little grease on those cotter pins just so I can get them out in the future. So with the front all done, it is time to move on to the rear. Now, it's not new, but it's close to like new. There's basically no rust on it anywhere. I think they might have treated it with something, but it is in excellent condition. But I'm still not going to put it back into the Forester like this. I am going to hit it with the rubberized undercoating and just coat everything, bottom and top, and kind of give it the same type of finish as the struts over here. I've already gone ahead and done the lower part of those with the rocker guard and the upper part with the clear coat, just like I did on the front. And then for the trailing arm brackets, I have already gone ahead and taken the factory brackets and cleaned them right back down to bare metal. Cleaned them up as best I could, hit them with some primer, painted, and now I think I'm going to hit them with the spacer brackets from Anderson Fabrications, all with the same rubberized undercoating. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a lot of parts ready to go here. Subframe is completely done. Heavy coat top and bottom. The lateral arms or control arms, I sprayed the non-adjustable ones, and then I've got all new grade 8 hardware for both of the ends that connect to the actual subframe. These bolts are actually 1/2 inch, and the stock ones are 12 mil or M12s. So I actually had to run my 1/2 inch drill bit through these, just like I did the front control arms. I also drilled out the bushing collars on those trailing arms to 1/2 inch so that I can just use standard grade 8 hardware that's easy to get a hold of. And you can see how how nice the trailing arm brackets actually turned out. They almost look like a new product that I bought. Rear knuckles are heavily coated with some clear coat. I didn't want to really put any of the rubberized coating on those. And then I do have the spacers already mounted on the struts. I've used the stainless hardware on those, and then I've got new camber bolts and grade 8 bolts to put in on the bottom end of them. So it's a lot of stuff. I'm going to start setting up and getting ready to install. Moving right along, I have the rear struts bolted in at the top anyway with new stainless hardware, and I didn't have to make any changes with the brake line at all. I have the rear subframe all mounted and tightened in, some new bolts in here. This way I can actually extract the bolts and lower the differential down and actually get the diff out, or at least take the cover off if I decide to do a locker later on, and I won't have to take everything apart. Okay, so everything's going pretty quick. I've got all of the control arms or lateral arms, and the trailing arms are on. You can see on this side I've got the bracket all mounted up and it's all tight. I'm gonna probably give those bolts a good spray of clear coat or something to coat them anyway. Try and keep some of the rust off some of the hardware. Grade 8 bolts up in here. These rearward bolts in these adjustable arms are actually 9/16 bolts, and those rear ones 1/2 inch, or the forward ones I should say, are 1/2 inch. So I'm pretty much ready to install the axles and get the knuckles loaded on, and I've already got all the hardware laid out, so things are going pretty quick. So I just popped in this axle, and look at the amount of drop you can actually get out of it without any real tension on it. It's amazing how much extra you can get with them. So as far as the suspension goes, it is complete. I've got everything installed, everything is tight, the axle's torqued. It looks very different with all the new components in there. It's just, I'm very glad I went ahead with this. And here's another look from the underside. I've got anti-seize on all the bolts and the threads and the shoulders, just to make sure I can get everything apart in the future if I really want to take this differential back down. On to the brakes. Now these drums are about 3 years old, and the amount of rust that was coming out of this porous area was really heavy, so I decided to kind of clean up a little area with the wire brush and see how it came out. I decided to do them completely and hit them with primer and paint. The paint is still settling. It's been a few hours, but I just left some fingerprints over here, so let them sit for a little while longer. But the rear brakes are together. I did install the new wheel cylinders, and I have new stainless hardware on the backside holding them in. The braided line is all connected. I just kind of gotta get a couple zip ties to hold it to the strut. The adjustment was left the way that it came apart, so there should be very little adjustment considering these shoes were working with those drums. It should just literally slide together and maybe a click or two to get them adjusted up properly. But this is all finished. Other than sliding on that drum, I was thinking I don't have the bracket that was holding the parking brake cable, so either I'll zip tie it to the arm, or I may even get some insulated stainless clamps, just those clamp straps kind of things, and actually fasten it to the original position on the arm. But yeah, things are looking good, and I'm glad it's done. So I'm pretty much there. I've got all the suspension together, the brakes are all together, just a couple, I've got to bleed the rear brakes obviously. I'll be doing that off camera. But there's a few more things before I can actually finish this thing up and drive it. So I've got to get some fluids into it, obviously load the wheels onto it. I got mud flaps to install, so there's a few smaller things that need to be done before I can actually drive it out of here. Of course, an alignment will need to be done. So there's going to be a kind of a part 5 video to finish this all up. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.